Greetings everyone, so I'm going to play you a little clip from a comedy panel show and then I'll have a few things to say about it.
So, Richard, what is Matthew to you?
This is Matthew. When we were 9 years old, we co-founded an atheists club.
Atheists Club?
Yes.
Well, there's an obvious question, isn't there? At what point did you decide to lie about your atheism just to earn money from the Church of England?
So in that clip you had the Reverend Richard Coles, a now former Anglican priest. You may be wondering what a priest was doing on a comedy panel show in the UK, but he was there for some reason. And he was one of the three panelists on one team. This show is titled, I'm not sure if it's on anymore to be honest, haven't watched TV, but it's titled Would I Lie to You? And the whole point is that some people are lying on the show, some people are not, and you have to try and figure out who is and who isn't. And in this particular round, the three panelists on one team had to all explain who this man who came out and couldn't say anything was to them. And one of them did actually know him. The other two didn't know him, but they all had a story about who he was to them. And then the other team of three panelists had to work out who was telling the truth. And funnily enough, the Reverend Richard Cole said that he had formed an atheist club with this guy despite being a priest in the Anglican Church. So of course that led to the obvious question from David Mitchell, who's the team captain on the other team, who asked him, well, in that case, what are you doing being a priest, basically, and just taking money from the church? Now, I did mention that Richard Cole is a former Anglican priest. He actually left the Anglican Church because he felt that it wasn't inclusive enough to gay people or to LGBT people. That's very ironic, considering that he was married to a man, he had a husband, and at the same time was able to be a priest in the Anglican Church, despite the fact that the Anglican Church doesn't actually yet permit gay marriage. That may well change, but for now, and certainly when he was married, it did not permit gay marriage, and yet somehow it completely overlooked or okayed the fact that he was married to a man and he was able to be a priest. Yet he felt they were not welcoming enough to him. I don't really know how that can even work. I mean, imagine in the Catholic Church if there was a priest and then suddenly he decided to get married to a woman and the church said, actually, no, you can't do that. You've given a vow of celibacy. And he was like, yeah, well, you know, he decided to marry this woman, he kind of liked her, you know, so he married her. And they went, well, they're not really happy with that, but all right, carry on. No, he would stop being a priest immediately. Now, I know you may also say that the Catholic Church does have some dodgy figures in it, for sure. It does have people in it who have said some very ambiguous and borderline heretical things, and they have not been reprimanded by Pope Francis. I'm well aware of this, but this is quite a big one, though, in the Anglican Church. To say that marriage is between a man and a woman, only a man and a woman, gay marriage isn't permitted, and then to have a priest in your church who you know is married, because he's very open about it. He's quite the celebrity, actually. He's been on television a number of times, and he had a husband. He doesn't have a husband anymore because his husband passed away from alcoholism. And then just to be fine with that and let it carry on. But anyway, I digress slightly. So back to the point I wanted to make. So David Mitchell asked that question in a humorous way, you know, basically wanting to know what he's doing as an Anglican priest when he was one at that time, considering he's formed an atheist club. And it made me think, you know what, despite the humour in that, sadly it probably isn't too far away from the truth. I do believe there are numerous amounts of priests in the Anglican Church who, if not atheists, would at the very least be agnostics, but they've just decided to go for this role because, well, you know, it's a nice cushy position. You get to make some money, you have an authoritative position, you're well respected. If people come to you for advice, they listen to what you have to say. You can have your own family, you can even get married to someone of the same sex if you look at the example of Richard Coles. And yeah, you also get to be a priest and make some money. And maybe you're hoping there is a God and Christianity is true, but you're not really sure. And if there isn't, well, you're covered at least in the material world. Now, again, you may say that in the Catholic Church, perhaps there are priests like this as well. I don't think so. There may well be, and in fact, there probably are, infiltrators in the Catholic Church, but I don't think that there are men who joined the church because it was a cushy position. Because they're not really sure if this is true, but hey, it's a nice position to have. Why? Because when you become a Catholic priest, you actually have to sacrifice something. You have to make vows. You have to make the vow of obedience. You have to make the vow of chastity. And you have to make the vow, in some cases, depending on the order, of poverty. So you don't get to have the family. You don't get to have your cake and eat it. You don't get to have both things. If you decide to be a priest in the Catholic Church, you're giving up the possibility of having a family, of having a beautiful wife and children. And so you really have to think about it. And if you're not sure if Catholicism is true, if Christianity is true more broadly, then you're not likely to want to become a priest just because it's a nice position and people respect you. But that brings me on to something else, though, in the Catholic Church that I do want to talk about. And that is what I suppose people could call Catholics in name only. It's probably not the best time to use because, if you were baptized a Catholic, then you are a Catholic. Even if you're not practicing, even if you're ignoring the church teaching, you're still officially a Catholic. But I think it's the only word I can think of, this Catholics in name only, because it essentially describes Catholics who just completely, don't live as they should. And that doesn't mean to say that they're sinners, because we're sinners generally, even if we are practicing Catholics, but it just means that they purposely, knowingly ignore certain things from the church. Now, I'm not even talking here about the political figures who are Catholic, who just seem to be doing crazy things that are completely contrary to the teachings of their church. I'm not talking about strange, dodgy priests, like a certain priest in America who's quite well known, a Jesuit, who writes for America magazine that I think he founded. I'm talking about the more subtle ones. Let me give you an example. In my parish, there are numerous women, and they have children, and their children are now older. They've been through school, they've been through university, and they are very proud of what their children have accomplished. They're proud that they went to good schools. They're proud that they went to good universities. They're proud of the good, well-paid job they have. But if you were to ask them about their children's practicing Catholic life, they would suddenly kind of, you know how it is these days with young people and the world. Basically, their kids are not practicing Catholics anymore. And that doesn't seem to bother them that much. It's almost like they feel that if they pray enough for them, that'll be fine. They can pray for them and then that will send them to heaven as well. If you are a Catholic and you have children, the number one priority for you should be that they are practicing their faith. Not that they get into a good school, not that they get a good well-paying job, not that they have a nice house, not that they meet a nice wife and have a nice family. Sure, these are all things that can come after the fundamental thing, and that is that they are practicing Catholics. And yet that isn't how it is. The fact of the matter is that if a Catholic mother or father are told by their child that they want to become a priest or a nun, they are horrified. They're like, really? Are you sure you want to become a priest? Are you sure you want to do this? Really? Because they feel like they're throwing their life away. Why would they feel that way? Your son or daughter has just told you they want to serve Christ. They want to give their life to God, serving Jesus. And you're like, oh, really? But you could have gone to a good university and had a good job. That doesn't matter. That shouldn't matter. That's why whenever I see Catholics who care more about the worldly things than they do about their faith, I do wonder about how much they actually believe. Because if you actually truly believed, you wouldn't constantly be chasing that better job, more money. I know that if you have a family, you have to provide for them. I get it. Of course, that's the material side of things, but that shouldn't be the priority. It should never be the primary goal. And yet it is for so many people. Anyway, folks, that's my mini rant on that issue. Let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Have a blessed day.